The adrenaline of competing in jiu-jitsu or grappling compared to the adrenaline of MMA, it's not even in the same universe. It's completely different. And as a martial artist, there is something deeper about competing in MMA. It's the ultimate test of a martial artist.
Hello, friends. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of the Mayn Idea Podcast, where today I have the pleasure of sitting down with Rafael Lovato Jr. If you love this podcast and you want to support it, please take 30 seconds and leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify and subscribe to the YouTube channel. This helps the show get discovered organically, and it helps me continue to bring on incredible guests. There are also now timestamps in the show notes, so feel free to jump around to the part that interests you most, although I always recommend listening to the episode in its entirety. Rafael Lovato Jr. is a 5th-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, multiple-time IBJJF World Champion, and former Bellator Middleweight Champion. If you have a moment, please check out Rafael's new website, LastRoundBestRound.com, which is in the show notes, where he will be releasing a 4-part documentary series covering his cerebral cavernoma diagnosis, which preceded his championship bout against Gegard Mousasi at Bellator 223. I hope that you enjoy this episode as much as I did. Without further ado, the American legend himself, Rafael Lovato Jr. Well, Rafael, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. It has been something that I've been looking forward to a lot. I got to chat with your friend Cameron Shane a while back, and I've been really looking forward to this conversation. So thank you for carving out the time, fasting, eating right before the show, and getting on here, man.
Yeah, sure. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So I'll jump in right in with a question that he and I had a chance to talk about, but it's something that when I see athletes like yourself accomplish so much in their life and never let off the gas pedal, to be honest, I get super inspired because I'm someone that plans on moving for the rest of my life, provided that no extenuating circumstances happen. And to look up the ladder and see people like yourself relentlessly pursuing things that involve their body and actually using it, it's truly inspiring. So I ask you, as you've gone through one of, in my eyes, the most gauntlet of sports in mixed martial arts, one of the most physically demanding from a physiological level, athletic performance level, nutrition demands. How has your perception of age adjusted as you've gotten older, but still continue to be competitive?
Oh man, I mean, to be honest, on the inside, I still feel the same. Mentally, spiritually. I think the obsession, the love of the craft, and always having goals. Like for me, that hasn't gone anywhere. Of course, the issues with the body. For me, I feel like it just makes me smarter. I try to put everything in the positive light. The glass is half full versus half empty, and definitely I feel some things, that I didn't feel, um, even like 5 years ago when I was 35. I think right around that time, I was kind of at my best physically. But, of course, 10, 15, 20 years ago, I was just kind of ridiculous with the intensity that I trained and the capacity, the frequency. I mean, I would never take a day off.
Yeah.
But over the years you just mature and you get smarter. You get more intelligent. I'm around better minds, and the ones that I've been around for this amount of time, they've also gotten smarter and matured, and we all have better training habits. We all understand things more. The access to knowledge is so much higher. So there's lots of information, lots of inspiration, and that's where I'm operating. So I have to be careful and be smart. The signs are always there when I need to tone it down a little bit.
Yeah.
And I just try to listen to that voice a little more than the other voice that says, keep going, and do more than everybody else, and just grind, grind, grind. And of course, you need a certain element of that, but at the same time, I understand that most of what I'm doing these days is maintenance, and I need to be operating at a full, as much of a full gas as possible, instead of trying to keep pushing the gas when the brakes are on.
How, you mentioned like understanding this relationship of how to push yourself, how to manage intensity, volume. You reflect on the younger self as being kind of like foot on the gas all the
Mhm.
time. And
Mhm.
I think it's funny because I'm going to be 35 in January, so I'm right at that point that you referenced where you
Uh-huh.
start feeling like I love training. I mean, it's been my life since I was a kid. It's everything that I love to do. But I totally understand what you're talking about. There's things that stick up every once in a while. You're like, wait, I used to be able to just like truck stick right through that, never think about it. How do you mature? How do you actually do that? How do you stay competitive at a level like what you're? I mean, you're about to go step on the mats with a very young, athletic, aggressive person, not even bat an eye on it, knowing that they have that ability, right? They are young. They can go hard, hard, hard all the
Mhm.
time and wake up and just do it again. And you have to be more calculated. How do you actually understand that? And how important are the people around you in understanding that
Mhm.
as you age and maintain that
Mhm.
competitive desire?
Well, I approach everything, from my career, athletically, and just life in general, with a martial arts mindset. And so, I'm always trying to learn and improve and progress. And I take that into every facet of my life, my routine, business, how I balance, how I recover, how I try to get myself to be present and in the moment, and in anything that I'm doing. And you have to just keep evolving and understand that everything has a different hat to wear. When I'm
Yeah.
teaching, I'm trying to be the best teacher possible. When I'm home, I'm trying to be the best husband, father possible. When it's time to work on my business, I'm trying to be the best businessman that I can be. And then of course I have my own personal goals. But one thing that I've grown to understand is that all of these things, I'm better at all of them when I'm taking care of my body, and
Mhm.
when I'm tapping into each one of them every day. So I want to work on business. I want to work on my body. I want to train hard. I want to help my students. I want to, and so I have a lot of things to juggle, but I enjoy them all, uh, more whenever I am tapping into each one of those. Otherwise, I feel like I'm missing out. So, whenever, like a lot of it, I have to kind of, what's the word, like multitask.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm doing emails while I'm in the sauna. So I have a sauna in my office. It's right there. I'll do emails and calls while I'm in the sauna. Or maybe an Epsom salt bath. I'll do calls while I'm taking a little recovery walk. I'll stretch and foam roll or whatever whenever I'm hanging out with my wife, instead of just sitting there and watching TV, right? Or whatever we're doing. Just, of course, when it's her time, it's her time, but I can still kind of move or stretch or do something. If we're gonna, plot out something or talk for a little while, watch a Netflix show, all right, I'm gonna do that, or maybe I'm gonna put on the Normatec pants. I'm like
Yeah.
always trying to blend, some recovery or whatever into what I'm doing. Um, and but then when it's time to train, I'm fully into my training. When it's time to teach, I'm fully into my teaching. If I'm going to the gym, my workout, I'm present. But I definitely take time for my body every day. I don't feel right, if I
Mhm.
don't. If I don't at least do some sort of small movement. Maybe it's only 30 minutes to an hour is all I got. But I'm going to stretch and do something, a little flow, hop on the bike. I have a bike at home. I've invested in different things over the years. Like I said, over time you get smarter. I understand, okay, this thing is something that I need to have.
Yes.
I'm gonna build the space. I'm gonna, save up or whatever I got to do to invest in that. You find the right body workers. You find, camera came into my life. I hone in on that. Like all these different things that I know are just another piece of the puzzle that I can bring in, and it makes me better, it makes me do better, and that's it. So always trying to improve. The martial arts mindset. How can I plug that into everything that I'm doing?
It's crazy how unwilling, and I don't fault people for this because, again, I've spent my whole life has been as a trainer and in athletics. So I think about this all the time. But how unwilling people are to invest in their own health in a preventative manner, right?
Hmm.
Like you talk about Normatec boots, right?
Hmm.
That's a high cost item. They're like $1,500. But if you have a pair, you invest $1,500 one time and you mitigate all these risks and all these overuse injuries by being able to recover. So it seems like a high upfront cost, but you're giving yourself so much in return. Same with sauna, same with
Yeah.
cold plunge, carving out space in your own house, same thing. Dedicating
Mm.
physical and mental space to your own well-being, it it should be a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
That should be something that we jump off the couch to go do. But it's almost like you only see it in at the athletic level because you guys talk about it, right? You're
Yeah.
you're willing to hop on a show and discuss this, and so people that otherwise wouldn't think about it go, "Oh, I didn't know they do that."
Yeah.
But it's
And
it's
there's
so
always a way.
commonplace.
There's always a way. If you have a bathtub, do an Epsom salt bath. I
Yep.
do that. I do that religiously. If you don't have a bathtub, you got to shower. Okay, go hot and cold. Do a
Yep.
contrast. We can all go for walks. We can all
Yep.
stretch. You don't. I mean, you've got carpet. You can get on the floor and stretch, or just put a yoga
I
mat
know
down.
my fiance thinks I'm crazy, but every night there's a foam roller and a
Yeah.
floor space, and
Yeah.
I do the same stupid routine every single night because it keeps me feeling like I'm a human, not
Right.
like I'm a busted up robot that doesn't work. Right?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
how did when you're introducing these things in your life from people that I've talked to, it seems like the idea of recovery, be that sauna, cold plunge, contrast therapy, Normatec boots, whatever falls into this bucket of like keeping your body feeling good that isn't the physical training, it's not the rounds on the mat, not the intensity. It seems like it was really reserved for sports teams, right? You would see it in like trainer rooms, you would see it in team
Hmm.
sports. And then now it's having this resurgence where people are kind of talking about this as an element of their fitness, right? In addition to going to the gym, they now find these studios where you can go and do contrast therapy, stuff like that. When in your career did you start to invest in this and go, okay, this is something that's like, this is a non negotiable now? This is
Uh,
something that I do so that I can be at this level.
yeah. So there were elements that just in my routine, in my life, my discipline that were already there in place, that I did very well. I understood I needed to move every day, that I felt better moving versus just laying around as rest and recovery.
Yep.
And like certain things like stretching or whatever, I always enjoy it. I've always done. I don't like to be still. It's hard for me to be still for
Yeah.
too long. So a lot of those things were there, but I'll tell you the real life-changing moment was in 2014. I had this pretty bad injury, right
Oh,
here, that
you tear your bicep.
it was a pec tendon. So the,
Oh
the
my
tendon
God.
that attaches, my
Yep.
arm to my body, basically, completely snapped, and they had to reattach it and let it grow back, and that put me out for a while. And I was already 31 years old, and I
Yeah.
had just done my first MMA fight, and this was a real life changing moment for me. Something that like when it hit, I was devastated, but then looking back on it, it was one of the best things that ever could have happened to me. It really re kind of realigned, where I was going, and what I wanted to focus on. Basically, I wasn't grateful enough for my body.
Mm.
I was grateful to do what I love to do, but I was abusing it in the sense that I had my first MMA fight, and a week later I did a jiu-jitsu tournament. It's just
Yeah.
stupid. Like it
Part of
didn't.
that's probably meant it's got to be mentality though too,
Oh, it's
right? I
all
mean, you're
mentality.
just like,
I'm the type that just wants to do it all, and
yeah.
um, I had a team going to a tournament. And I was like, oh, I won my fight. I didn't even get hit. It was easy. I'm not beat up. Whatever. I'll just jump into the tournament. I didn't keep in mind the 2-3 months of stress and
Yeah.
hard training and everything that I did leading up to it. And I just jumped right back in, and then I started getting ready for another event, and then that's when I hurt
Mhm.
myself. And that was the first time the pause button had been put on in my life, really since I was a kid. Like once I had set my mind to some goals, I'd only had one other injury, like a knee injury that didn't need
Mhm.
surgery, but I had done a really good job for a long time of literally doing every single event, every single major event.
Yeah.
Every year of my life was like, okay, Pan Am's, World Championships for Jiu Jitsu. I had the major gi season, and then okay, that's over. Now I'll do no gi all the way until December, and then January I started. I just kept going and going and going and going, and when that hit, it was the first time I like kind of just settled and just reflected and say, okay,
Yeah.
I can't do it all anymore. What am I going to focus on? and that's when I set my mind to MMA, and I started to be a little more picky and choosy for the jiu-jitsu events that I would do, because I'd already given so much of my life. I mean, all my 20s I was a black belt competing at all the biggest events, for a
Right.
decade. And I said, okay, now I'm in my 30s, I can't do that anymore and do MMA. And
Right.
so what's going to bring out the best of me? What's going to challenge me? What do I want to do the most? And I wanted to make a run in MMA. And
Well,
then
you did.
yeah, and I did. And then during that time, understanding those camps and
Yeah.
having a little more uh like appreciation for my body, and then just understanding, okay, I must be even more disciplined and diligent with what I'm doing, because now jujitsu is more like, a 2 time a day thing for me.
Mhm.
Maybe there were a couple days where I would do a little more than that, but the intensity of MMA is a whole nother equation altogether. And then you have to so much more to train. So now I have to do Muay
Right.
Thai, wrestling, strength and conditioning. Um, uh, there's still grappling and jujitsu going. I have my sparring sessions, all these things that I have to schedule into a week. And just to get through it in your 30s to where I was, I had to make sure I did the right amount of recovery. Otherwise, I would just die. And so um, I just got smarter. And then I've been using a lot of those elements that I picked up from my MMA camps to keep me going now at 40,
Mhm.
where I'm really just back into jiu-jitsu and focusing on, going on, I guess, one more little run, I guess. I don't know. None of this was really planned. I'm just kind of, I'm on for the ride right now.
Yeah. It's funny. I love this mentality so much, but listening to you reflect on this forced break, right? You get this injury, you have to chill out.
Mhm.
And the thing that you come to on the other end of that is that you're gonna go at it in the most demanding, toughest sport on
Mhm.
planet Earth, let alone the fashion in which you did it, which is
Yeah.
miraculous. And
Well, I think
I
at the end of the day, you need to do what you're most inspired for.
straight
And
up,
jujitsu, I was too comfortable with it.
yeah,
I'd already been there, fought the best of the best for multiple generations. And after doing that first MMA fight, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt
yeah,
that being a white belt again, and I felt fear and nerves on another level. The adrenaline of competing in jiu-jitsu or grappling compared to the adrenaline of MMA, it's not even in the same universe. It's completely different. And as a martial artist, there's something deeper um, about competing in MMA. It's the ultimate test of a
yeah,
martial art of a martial artist. And I had a life of martial arts before I ever got into jujitsu. When I
mhm,
was younger, following my father, who was a lifetime martial artist, we didn't have jujitsu in our lives. Since I was a little kid, jujitsu came later when I was already a teenager, and we learned together.
yeah.
We came up together in jiu-jitsu. But for me, MMA was a way for me to put my whole life of martial arts into one expression or display.
Yeah.
And uh, and coming out, I was just like, man, if I can only do one thing at this stage, I want it to be that.
Maybe you can expand a little bit on fear, because I think this is as a huge fan of martial arts and someone who is involved in jiu-jitsu as much as I physically can be each week, fear is such an interesting thing to watch in fighters, because you can watch someone come out. Like, I was just at I think you were as well, the Bellator 300 event, right? You see
Hmm.
these guys walk down this long entrance in, and you can just tell it doesn't matter who you are and how much you've prepared. There is just this element of unpredictableness that is present in a mixed martial arts fight.
Oh,
You are going to be locked in a fucking cage with someone, and
hmm.
they're not going to unlock it until one of you is either knocked out,
Yeah,
choked out, or you're both blade. Like, it's insane, right?
yeah.
How do you take something like fear, which is this primal emotion that we have, and harness it to achieve greatness? Because some people get crushed by it. Some people never even step in the
Hmm.
academy because of it. Some
Hmm.
people never join a gym because of it. We all experience it on different levels, but when you watch two people in there, no matter how tough they are, or who they are, that they got that on some level. They're
Hmm.
grappling with this element.
Oh, yeah.
So how do you use it? How do you take that in camp? How do you direct it? How do you
Hmm.
channel that amongst your team?
Hmm.
That emotion, the fear of it.
Yeah. Everyone's a little different, but what I feel is baseline, you have to know your purpose. What is your why? What are you doing it for to begin with?
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a really strong sense of your why and your purpose that allows you to accept that fear, because you know what you're there for, and what you're trying to do and what you represent, and there's so many layers to that. Uh, but deep down, I think that's the baseline of where it all starts,
Mm-hmm.
and then from there, the fear, you just you grow to fall in love with it, I guess. I mean, it's tough. Definitely the scariest thing I've ever done is get in the cage. But it's it's also one of the things I cherish the most. The most favorite thing that I've ever done in my life, because of everything that it taught me and gave to me, and the people that it brought me closer to. Um, and it's a beautiful thing. But that's what pushes you day in and day out to to give your best, and go through all those grueling sessions, and just be so dedicated to your craft, and your purpose. I fought for legacy, for family, for my father and everything that he taught me. I've been surrounded by these incredible martial artists my whole life, and they were all in my corner. They're all behind me. So I felt like I was a piece of them, and I'm trying to put the perfect representation of all of them together into one little masterpiece,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course for me it was for my challenge, and to know that I'm becoming the best martial artist I can possibly be, because I am putting myself in the most chaotic, crazy situation possible, and I don't know what's going to happen. There's you can't overplan it, and to be honest, and there's a lot of ways that mentally I I feel like I did better in MMA than what I even do for jiu-jitsu, because jiu-jitsu I like to have a plan for everything. It's a little
Mm-hmm.
it's a giant universe as well, but I've been doing it for so long, and I know I know the game so well. I know all the
Yeah.
styles. I know, so I sometimes I can overthink and analyze what I want to do or what they're going to do and all this kind of stuff. And MMA, I learned to not even try to do that, because there's too much. There's too
Right.
much. There's
Yeah.
too many variables, and I found this really beautiful sense of acceptance, and just like what will be,
Mm-hmm.
and trust. I trust 100% in my abilities, in my preparation. I trust in my coaches, and I'm going in there with nothing but gratitude, and love and inspiration and purpose, and heart. I'm ready to fight, until I have nothing left. I accepted everything that I needed to be to get locked in there and do, to go as deep as I need to go. And I trusted that I would be able to, because I had that deep sense of purpose, and I was surrounded by the right people. I knew who I was. I knew who
Mhm.
everyone around me was. I knew we were all there for the right reasons. All these things that I'm very grateful that I started MMA later in life, because maybe if I was still in my 20s, some of those things might be a little rocky. I'm still trying to find myself.
Right.
But in my 30s, I knew exactly what I was doing there.
Yeah. When I listened to it's been I think 5 years now since the episode came out, but you spoke with Joe Rogan about the diagnosis and this brain injury, and just like listening to you talk about the lead up to this event, like I really don't think that the episode did justice to how insane it is that you got in the cage. Actually, when you
Mhm.
think about what you were dealing with, like this is not a, it's not a staph infection, it's not an elbow or a joint injury. This is stepping into a cage where someone is trying to punch you in the head the whole time, amongst other things. And you walk in there knowing that inside of that head, there is this mysterious thing going on that you haven't been able to pinpoint fully,
Mhm.
but you've been able to get to a point to say, hey, based on expert opinion that we've sought out in all these different areas, where systems go, you close that door, you forget about it mentally, and you show up and win the belt in against someone who is not just a scrub. This wasn't an amateur fight, right? This is a decorated juggernaut in Bellator. You get the belt and just you see it in the video, just absolutely erupt, right? All of these emotions come forward, all the hard work with your team, the trust that you put around you, the hamstring injuries, the doctor visits, like maybe you can unpack a little bit that experience and maybe touch on the fear element, because
Mhm.
fear and isolation, as we talked about, and I love what you said about purpose as an underlying driver to get through that. This adds another element, because now it's fear of an unknown that you don't have any control over. This
Mhm.
is completely out of your wheelhouse, right? You're not a doctor. What was it like getting that, deciding with your team that you were going to go through with this, and then popping out on the other side of it like that? I mean, it's
uh,
nuts, man.
I can't. I can't. Really express, like, I can try to talk it out, but it's hard to put into words, because um, you have to be there and be going through what we were going through. Every day was just really, really hard. All I can say is that I had, and I still have, the best band of brothers and really family. In my life that martial arts gave to me. I always say that the greatest gift that you get from jujitsu or living a martial arts lifestyle is the people, the relationships that you gain, because you keep doing what you love, and then you look around and you realize, man, I'm doing this with the same people for decades, and we go through it all together when we're consistently showing up and trying to be better together and helping each other. And so, I really, really love my team. And I had two guys, especially Mauricio Amado, who's my Muay Thai and MMA coach, my head coach, and then my jiu-jitsu brother, Shanji Hibero, the guy that I've done it all with for 20 years. They were with me in Brazil when I was in camp and still trying to see doctors and trying to just figure out what was going on and navigating through it all. I was extremely emotional. And I was calling my wife every day. Of course, my wife, I mean,
I'm sure
she
she was
was
freaking
just,
out.
yeah, I mean, she wasn't freaking
So
out. To be
brutal.
honest, she was trying to carry some of the emotion with me, and
Mm,
I was crying every day with everybody. Just, you work so hard to get to this point, and then I feel like, oh, now I can't even go for it. Like, I
right.
don't know if I'm going to win or lose, but at least let me try this is the fight that I needed, to have that full challenge as a martial artist. I wanted to go against a legendary guy like that, and of course I wanted to be a world champion. And so not just for me, to put my dad, the family name up there, and for my coach, especially Mauricio, who had dedicated and given so much for my MMA career. I wanted him to be able to say that he is a world champion MMA coach. Like that, that was extremely important to me because he deserves it. And so, anyways, all of that weight on you, and then coming to terms with understanding that I'm not whole. There is something wrong with me, and figuring out this is something I've been born with. It's a condition I've had my whole life, and just trying to wrap my head around all that, and then at the same time prepare for this major fight where I'm already a huge underdog, and
Yeah.
I'm not sleeping, and I'm stressed, and I don't know if it's going to happen, it's not going to happen, I'm worried about my health, I'm getting hit in the head. Next thing you know, I hurt my hamstring, and it's no surprise. Like, of course, I'm
Yeah.
emotional, stress, not
Yeah.
sleeping, of course, exactly.
Brain body.
And all these things go on, but I said it on that Joe Rogan episode. And when I look back in my life, I'm not supposed to be where I am today. I'm a kid from Oklahoma, and my father and we never had jujitsu here. I'm
Yeah.
the last person that you would think would become a black belt world champion and make so much history for America in the art of jujitsu, the sport of jujitsu. I'm not supposed to be where I am, and this book changed my life. Back in 2007, 2008, right after I won my first world title, I found this book based on some quotes. And I saw the author of the quotes, and then I saw that he wrote a book, and I read this book, and I looked back on my life, and I up to that point, and I had just achieved what I felt was like my major life goal, which was to be a black belt world champion.
What's the
And
book?
Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah, yeah.
Think
Napoleon
and Grow
Hill.
Rich from Napoleon Hill, yes.
Yeah.
And there were so many things in that book that stuck with me, and I read it over and over again, and I kept it with me for all my fight camps. And when I would go to my fight, I would read it backstage. And like I said on that Joe Rogan episode, I had all this stress going on, and I hadn't picked up the book in a while. I was just like, just going through it. I didn't know I was going to get the fight until 2 weeks before the fight. And anyone that's been in the
So
MMA camp, they can attest to how crazy that is, because it's like, how do you train and prepare for something you don't even know if it's going to happen or not?
let alone
And
let alone a world title like
right,
that can't be underscored. This is
yeah,
not
and we got to go to
should I
London.
sign up for the weekend jiu-jitsu tournament or not? Like this is
Right,
fucking different.
yeah, and we got to go to London, and I got to take my
Yeah.
whole team, my family, and I was
Totally.
waiting to
Totally.
book it all these logistics. I was like, I don't even know if it's going to happen. But
Yeah.
anyways, we get there, and somehow, some way, the camp managed to end positively. Um, but of course, it was far from perfect, or far from the best camp I ever had. It was the worst, to be honest. But I opened up that book, and I had the flap saved on a page.
Mhm.
So I open it, and I'm like already inside the book, and I'm like, okay, it's time to read this a little bit. Let's get ready. We're about to go to war. And I open it, and the first thing that I see is a sentence I had already highlighted, and it says, "Every adversity carries with it the seed of an equivalent advantage." And as soon as I read that, it all hit me at once. I got I got goosebumps. I got super emotional. I looked around. I saw my dad. I saw Mauricio. I saw Shanji, and one of my other training partners who've been with me for a long time. And I got like a little teary eyed, and I smiled, and I just knew we're gonna win. We're gonna win. I want it more than he does. All of this was just more fuel to the fire for me to prove that I'm ready to do whatever it takes in there. I've already went through the hardest fight possible just to be there, just to go through doctor after doctor after doctor after doctor, and finally find the one to give me a note that says okay, all those things. And it hit me, and I said, man, what, what's he going to do to me? You know what I mean? He's going to
Yeah.
have to completely shut my lights out, because otherwise I'm not going to stop coming. and the sense of purpose and everything was just in full alignment. And it's like, all right, this is it. It's meant to be. I know it's meant to be. I know it's my destiny. And it was a super hard fight. I still had to go out there and earn it. Um, but that's life, man. Like all the obstacles and everything you go through on your journey for whatever it is that inspires you, your passion, that worthwhile journey, it just makes you better. It just makes you stronger. And even when you're in the worst, in the trenches, in the thick of it, when you're like, why is this happening to me? All these things, I promise if you don't give up and you keep going, it'll make sense later. You'll look back on it and be grateful for it and know, that was why I needed that to get to here. And 100%, like that was where I was. And it wasn't about money or fame or I mean anything. It was just legacy,
How,
family, everything that was pure.
how do you, so life is crazy just in general, right? Hitting a peak, I think we all hit peaks in our life. There's always peaks and there's valleys. There's emotionally distressful things that we experience, loss of loved ones. It so much happens. And I, from someone else looking in, right? That appears to be such a vast peak, right? You overcome this diagnosis, this camp, and then it's not like then you got a promotion at your job. Then you went and you won the world title. But that's a moment. That's one moment. And that moment's over and it happened and it's gone. And now it's 5 years later. How do you, as a martial artist, as a person who's thinking about this kind of stuff on the level that you do, how do you experience a high like that and maintain optimism, maintain a positive mindset going through the rest of your life, stay invested, stay creative? How do you not let something so great just be a peak moment where everything after it is less than? And you constantly are
Mhm.
reflecting back on how wonderful this one thing was. I think it's easy to get caught in those traps in
Yeah.
life, or to get sucked into the down part when things are really shitty and just feel like that's the only thing that exists in your world. So how do you maintain that? How do you let
hmm
those experiences happen and still walk through with a head high
hmm
and still live a wonderful, beautiful life?
Yeah. I think it's just about, once again, purpose, understanding your inspiration. I mean, we're always these evolving creatures. And so, if your sense of purpose or value or motivation or whatever isn't something that is only about one thing, one moment, you're missing out on so much else, right? So that is just one piece of my martial arts life. I'm still here learning and developing, trying to teach and pass it on as best as I possibly can. And I have a greater sense of purpose now because more and more it's not about me, it's about those
Yeah.
around me. I'm a father now. I gave, well, I didn't I didn't give birth,
Oh,
I didn't give
yeah.
birth,
Wild. All right,
but
hold on. We gotta restart. Let's
yeah,
whole new podcast
yeah,
here.
right. No,
Wild times.
I had my wife had, I was
Yeah.
just
There
holding
you go.
her hand um last year for our twin
Yeah.
babies, a boy and a girl. Just
Oh wow.
incredible, uh unbelievable miracle. So uh,
Amazing.
and so much of what I'm doing today, talk about body and being able to move.
Yeah.
I'm 40. I'm getting a little bit of a late start. So 10, 15 years from now, I got to be able to train my son, or my daughter,
Yeah.
whoever wants to beat me up the most. I got to be ready for it. And, uh, same thing with my students and just, and then I have new goals, new aspirations. But to really sum it up, I'm going to give you a little bit of one of my mantras. All right.
Yes,
That
please.
that may or may not become something. All right.
Yeah.
As far as material I want to put out down
Yeah.
the line, but
Heard it here first.
in that, well, I, I've said it a few other times, and if you look, I hashtag it a lot, and I even have an Instagram page for it now. But this was something that I put in my trainings. You know, it's just like a martial arts athletic type thing, and then I've seen how it grows into just life in general. But since I was a kid, you know, my dad he he just pushed me hard, and he was a great coach, great teacher, and he always set the example. He was someone that pushed himself, you know, so he could be better and make those around him better. And so I always just followed his example. But he would always push me hard, you know, and like tell me to dig deep and you know finish strong and things like that. And I grew to have this little saying that I would tell myself, um, in my strength and conditioning, in my jujitsu rounds, whatever. When it came down to that last round, I would tell myself, the last round is my best round. And I would just tell myself that over and over and over again. And I would make sure that it was my best round. I would always try to end strong, you know, finish stronger than I started. And if it was sprints, if it was sparring, whatever it was, I wanted to give everything I had and make sure that that last round was my best round. And sometimes I could be real stubborn, and maybe it wasn't my best round. I said, we got to go again. We got to go again,
Right.
you know. But what was so crazy is that world title fight came down to the fifth round, and this was my first time to ever do a fifth round. Um, and you know, my opponent had done several. He had, you know, he was a multiple time world champion, and so I'm in this fight, very unexperienced compared to my opponent. He had 5 times the amount of fights of me, world class experience, all this stuff. I'm a huge underdog. And it comes down to that fifth round. We're 2-2, right? So I won the first two, he won the second two. Now it's a tiebreaker. And the last round was my best round. He didn't touch me. I dominated that round. And I was saying that to myself right when it was time to go. And so were my coaches.
Yeah.
Um, and that just, it hit me once again, you know, understanding how everything lines out the way it's supposed to. And now I just see that in life as a whole, because I needed to find some sort of positivity whenever the
Yeah.
commission came back afterwards. And you know, they told me they were not going to let you fight anymore, you have to give up your belt, blah 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 blah. And I spent a year and a half trying to convince the commission. I saw doctor after doctor, specialist, UCLA, Cleveland Clinic. I was flying, traveling, getting all this information, giving it to them, and just asking, give me a chance to get back in there and try to get my belt back.
Nothing.
And I was shut down.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it was pandemic, all this stuff. Had to close my business, you know, and I'm trying to come back to jujitsu, and I'm not fired up, but I'm just like I had some up and down performances and all this thing. And then I had to come to terms with like, okay, I may never fight again. Let's get over it. Exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And this just special phase of life started where it's like, okay, you know, there's more. And that belt didn't need to define me, as hard as it was to win it and let it go and all that. My last round can still be my best round. Life goes on, you know,
Yeah.
whatever is next. I'm only getting better. I'm smarter. I'm more grateful for everything. I have, you know, family, amazing wife, kids. I get to live my passion every day. You know, what is my new purpose? So let's realign, find the new purpose, make the biggest impact you can make, and keep going, because the best is always yet to come when you don't give up. You know, it just keeps getting better. And that's where my headspace has been these last few years. And then now I'm in my, you know, I just turned 40. I'm 40, and I'm putting up some of the best performances I've had in my career in jiu-jitsu and grappling.
I know.
And people, you know, they're like, whoa, what's going on? And I was supposed to be retired,
Yeah.
but all these opportunities kept coming to me, and I got to come back and do one more fight in December of last year for New Year's Eve in Tokyo.
And
Uh,
you won.
and I won,
Yep.
and it was beautiful, and I got to do it and hold my babies in the ring with me afterwards, and it was like,
Incredible, man.
this is even better. This is the best. You know, this
Yeah.
is that last round, best round moment. And, you know, I never gave up. And that's why it happened.
Well, I want to be respectful of your time, but I have to know. Coming up in the end of November, you have another Who's Number One fight with Pedro Mourinho, young, aggressive guy. You're stepping in there. How do you feel about this match? And do you want to call your shot? How does this thing end?
Oh, I can't say how it's going to end. I don't, I don't do that, but, um, I mean, I'm excited. I'm inspired. Uh, I'm going to be very well prepared. You know, the thing about jujitsu is it, it is, um, it is very technical, and
Mhm.
you know, it's just how do you get to your spots and make it the battle that that you can win, right? And
Yeah.
um, I am fully aware and understand how I must do that with all my opponents, and that's why I can be successful with the younger guys. You know, he is, you know, 26 or something.
Yeah.
Uh, but technique conquers, and so does will. And I'm not expecting anything to be easy. I'm fully aware it's going to be a very, very hard battle, but I'm going to enjoy it while it's happening, and I'm going to be grateful to be there. You know, that's something that maybe I didn't have enough when I was younger because it was all about winning or losing, and I feel like a lot of my performances when I was younger suffered because of that. I made it more than what it needed to be in a sense, like
Right.
um I didn't have the mental awareness on some of those deeper levels that I do today. And it's not like I say, oh, I'm going to be happy to be there, so you know, if I lose it doesn't hurt. No,
No, not at
not,
all.
not like that at all. I'm not one to give up anything easily, but that extra sense of gratitude, you know, can kind of take a little bit of pressure off,
Mhm.
and bring out the best of you. I mean, it brings out the best of me, and it just makes me appreciate what I'm able to do today. And I think that's going to bring out a great performance, and I'm going to get my hand raised at the end.
Well, I'm really looking forward to it. I really appreciate it, man. Your perspective on this kind of stuff it's really inspiring. I really mean that. And for a lot of the same reasons that I hear you talking about, you know, we want to have kids at some point. I'm doing that later in life. I want to be a super present, super active father who's getting down on the ground without assistance and standing back up without assistance, you know, all those things.
Yeah.
Those they really are the most important moments. Those are the things that you'll remember the rest of your life. And it's a travesty when people are unable to do those things because they didn't take care of themselves. That coupled with just the views on the sport and your humbleness, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to be here. Last round, best round. I will be
.com.
yeah, yeah. No, I already bought the
coming
domain name. See, you can
coming
buy it
soon.
from me. Yeah.
No, you don't. I have it. I
Awesome. Well,
know.
thank you, Rafael. I appreciate it so much. We'll do this again in the future, brother.
Well, and let me just say that
Yes.
because I talked about it, and this is going to come
Yep.
out in a couple of days, and in a couple of days, I'm releasing a trailer
Yep.
of a documentary of me going into that fight in Japan,
Amazing.
made by
Yeah.
Will Harris, the great documentarian. The guy's amazing. He does all the Anatomy of the Fighter series,
Yep.
and he captures it all. And
Wow.
and yeah, so by the time this comes out, LastRoundBestRound.com
Yep.
is going to be in motion, and so will that film. So be ready for it. It's you know, he did a
Well,
tremendous job, and that's my life out there.
will that be ready a week from right now?
Yes,
Okay, so in the show notes for everyone listening, lastroundbestround.com, you can click on that, and then also a link to the documentary will be on there too. So if you're
yes,
hanging out still, jump down there, and it's live now when you're hearing this.
that's right.
Awesome. Thank you, Rafael. I appreciate it, brother.
Thanks, Abe. Take care.